This is Comics Coast to Coast.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Dunaway, and you're listening to Comics Coast to Coast, episode 333, the Anthony Coffey interview. Before we talk to Anthony, let's reach over here and talk to my good buddy Joel Duggan of Starcrossed Online and Forge Publishing. Joel.
Hello. Is that what? No.
This will be
the 333.
This will be the first and last time we'll get to do the 333.
I was about to say, isn't there a special name for this? Is it a palindrome? Is that the same forwards and backwards? Did I remember my grade 6 math correctly?
I think you're right, but I think 333. I don't know if that really. I guess. I don't know. That's weird.
Well, we're halfway to 666. So hey.
All right. Let's not talk about that anymore. Is everything going well?
Everything is going well, and I've got something cool to talk about at the end of the show.
Excellent. Sounds good. And with us as well is Matthew Ducharme and Matt the Wad. Matt, how are you?
And, well, I'm great. And since this is the palindrome episode, I will say Taco Cat.
Taco Cat is a perfect palindrome. And also delicious. Or is it? I don't know.
Depends on which restaurant you go to, I guess.
If it's meant to be cute, I guess so. If it's meant to be accurate, I guess not. So, anywho, welcome to the show, Anthony Coffey. How are you, good sir?
I'm doing quite well. Thank you for having me. Absolutely.
Dear viewer, listener, if you are listening, head on over to AnthonySCoffey.com, and that coffee is spelled with a Coffey. AnthonySCoffey.com. Check out this artwork. It is fantastic. Anthony, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I'm an artist, illustrator, 3D modeler, animator. Pretty much do a lot of it and everything. Wear a lot of hats, but right now, currently, I'm working at Certifiable Studios as an artist/game designer. That's a new venture that's been going on for about a year and a half.
That is great. So now, is it a new adventure for you, or is it a new adventure for everyone? Is it a whole brand new company?
It's newer, but it's newer for me. They've been around for maybe 3 years.
Right. Hey.
Yeah.
Hey, it's the internet age. Things come fast. So 3 years.
That's right.
3 years, you're proven there. So can you tell us a little bit about Certifiable Studios and what you do there?
So it's a tabletop gaming company. Slash kind of whatever we want to really venture into is why it's studios. But we mainly focus on tabletop games, board games, card games, things of that nature.
Right.
And I, with a handful of other people, we work on designing and releasing the tabletop games. The format is a Kickstarter format for the most part at this time. So we release crowdfunding projects. But for the most part here, I will illustrate, design game mechanics, create rule books, graphic design, inserts for boxes, AutoCAD modeling, stuff like that. So it really is. It's a smaller company, so it's as many hats as you can wear.
Right, but it sounds like they're keeping you super busy. I'm on the website right now, and I'm assuming most of this art is yours. CertifiableStudios.com. I'm seeing.
Oh, that might be new. I didn't know that was up.
Oh, well, guess what? They got your work out there. It looks good. But yes, CertifiableStudios.com is the place to go check this out. And I see right there on the front page you were talking about some of these Kickstarter projects. You recently had one successfully funded called Who Goes There?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because it looks interesting to me because I'm a little bit of a horror fan. I kind of like scary stuff. And if it's cute and creepy, even better.
Yeah. It's a paranoia. It's a cooperative game until the paranoia sets in. Everybody kind of starts on the same team, and then it's a survival game.
Right.
Which, while you're going through the game, searching for the elements you need to escape, you come across potentially the thing. It's based off of the book Who Goes There, which was the inspiration for the movie The Thing.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So we got the rights to the book.
What?
And it was so closely tied to the license of the book. Sorry, but it was so closely tied to the movie that it was pretty much a 1-to-1. So we could get away with a lot of things that were similar to the movie because they were described in such detail in the book that way.
Right.
So
that just ratcheted my interest level up about 2,000,000% because first of all, I love the movie. I have never read the book. I do remember it being based on a book, and that is great. I got to play it now. So
so if you're into tabletop games, it's a fun one. It is.
Now, am I too late? Have I missed the Kickstarter? What do I need to do?
No, you could actually go to the Kickstarter page and do a late pledge, or it will be in retail in the next couple of months. It's still being shipped at the moment, so it's overseas right now. It's on the boat.
It's on the boat and from China, and it's gonna be a while. So I actually read somewhere that you take care of some of that stuff too. You work with the people overseas too to make sure they get it right.
Yes, there's a lot of back and forth with the factory that we deal with.
Right.
There are some other companies that will be a little bit more of a middleman that you can deal with, but we did that with the previous game, and this one we went more directly towards the factory and just you contact them daily. You're constantly checking product, you're getting samples, you're saying, yeah, this looks good, no, this doesn't, what do I need to adjust on my end? You start getting samples and being able to gauge what needs to be adjusted to help make the final product.
Right.
So
now, do you find that helps with your timeline? Given I can only imagine the time sink that involves. I mean, good to have that control, but is it a trade-off? Do you find that it's beneficial to do that versus having a go-between company that does that for you?
If you're able to do it, yes, very much so. I would say do it. That part of the aspect, aside from logistical stuff like shipping and all the business side of it, but from the production side and the creation side, if you can directly deal with them and you have fairly good communication skills of being able to interpret what you're trying to say, then yes, it's much better than just because if you go through a middleman, they're basically doing what you would be doing, but now there's a whole nother layer of communication that needs to be sent across accurately.
Wow.
For me, I think that separating the business and the production side makes a lot of sense. Like, you'd want more hands-on for art and game pieces and product design. But when it comes to shipping and stuff like that, it's like, well, dates and numbers are dates and numbers. Like, there's not a whole lot that can be lost in communication there.
Yeah, exactly. There is a lot of stuff, obviously, that goes into like organizing, the freighting and all the stuff, and just getting it on crates, and I mean, just so many things that just aren't related to the production aspect. But we have another guy here that mainly handles with that.
Good, because the artist, I've worked at a lot of small shops, and I know what it's like to wear the many hats, and it's always a tough balance, especially if you're working between your right brain and your left brain, and you're having to switch gears constantly. It's like, okay, I need to do something creative now, and now I've got to go talk to the shipping people.
Exactly.
I don't want to. I like doing artwork, but I bet you have a lot more freedom on your own on what gets done, and it's like, oh, I think it should. Can you push projects a little bit in the direction you kind of want a little bit? You get to put your vision into it a little bit, kind of. Nudge a little bit.
100%. And that's I think that's the major draw of working in a smaller company.
Right.
You have more agency over what you're creating.
That's great. Hey, I'm looking at this Kickstarter, and we've talked to a lot of people who've Kickstarted projects over the years, and this is the first time I've seen where even after the Kickstarting project has finished, you can actually keep on pledging. So is this is this outside of Kickstarter that I can pre-order this, or is it actually built into it? Is there a service that's beyond that, or do you even know?
I'm not 100% sure. I do know it's still tied to Kickstarter, but
Right.
because there's a certain point where we can close the late pledges.
Right.
Because afterwards it's you can keep it open as long as you want to still have people order.
Right.
Obviously, we've already got our numbers of what we need to, and then the amount of money to produce the quantity of units that we initially planned, but we still have obviously leftovers that are for sale. So you can still just go there and still basically order the inventory if you want it or not, or if you want to try and get a late copy.
Right. I've just been educated. I did not know that.
Does the name Backer Kit ring a bell?
Yes.
Okay.
I thought that's tied to Kickstarter, and it may not be.
Well,
It
it's
may
a
be
separate
third party.
It's a separate company, but they offer a service that's tied to Kickstarter. They essentially manage your reward fulfillment data. That's I used it for
Gotcha.
publishing Piper's book. But I think what might be misleading, Brian, is maybe what the text is on the button. I've never heard it called a late pledge though. It's brilliant. Like it's because you're still doing exactly what the Kickstarter set out to do. Like you're still backing a small company on a small project. You're just, instead of backing the Kickstarter, which has got a finite end, you're now just backing the project at large and it's akin to when we did a pre-order for Piper's book a month before it came out. Like we just, we're looking to see who would be interested in getting the book ahead of time, have a little bit of promo in there. But we did that through Backer Kit. I think that if I was to bet, I would say it's probably just a different way of wording that button that says, instead of pre-order, it says late pledge, which it's again, really smart.
Yeah. Smart for those artistic creators out there who are trying to look at Kickstarter. I like it. Now, before you tune out and go, man, you guys do nothing but talking business. I'm here for the artwork. So so we're gonna ask that question, that age-old question that every artist loves to hear. Talk about your inspirations. What do you love art-wise? Not, I don't want to know like what inspired you. Like, oh, I used to read so and so and they were fantastic. You can use that answer, but you don't have to answer in that form. So what do you like art-wise when you consume? What makes you go, wow, I want to do that, but in my own way? Is there anything out there that's kind of like got you geared up?
Yeah, it's usually obviously Instagram is my number one go-to for inspiration, but typically I'm character driven, so I love seeing people do stylized characters, and I'm not I understand the benefit of it for learning purposes and educational stuff, but I'm not a huge fan of like realism.
Right.
I love whenever you see somebody do a very amazing stylized character that you're just like, oh, it makes me want to try something like that. And even if it's not using everything, a character's face the way they did, but certain shapes and language they'll use in their line work, that's like, well, I want to try that, but I'll use it here and there in completely different aspects. It's just certain things will inspire you that you wouldn't think of. It's not the entire drawing. It's like, oh, I like the way he drew that boot.
Yes.
It's something so vague. But
that boot looks like it has hair on it. I want to draw it like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's something so small, and any little piece could inspire me and be like, oh wow, I like the way they did that. Now, can I draw a character that has something like that?
I love your character design, especially, and I throughout everything you've done, but I'm really digging Who Goes There, and I really love this. I love this work. It kind of reminds me of just. Oh man, I don't know. It kind of has a little bit of 80s and 90s vibe to it.
Yeah.
I feel a little bit of that. Maybe that's just me. Or are you a 80s, 90s kind of kid?
Oh dear God, yeah. I was grew up with Transformers, Ninja Turtles, all that stuff. It's just it shows through.
Yes, it does.
By any means.
Has anybody
the real Ghostbusters?
Right.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Got to have the real
except for the
Ghostbusters.
later episodes.
Well, yes, yeah.
I love them all equally. That's just me. I watch a lot of junk. Hey, so is anybody doing it right? Is anybody recreating that 80s, 90s nostalgia, like the more recent Turtles movies, or is there any like anything that's really got you excited? Like maybe the most recent what are they doing on Netflix? They're doing Thundercats, and they're doing what did they just reboot?
Yeah.
Thundercats is Cartoon Network.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Cartoon Network. Get it right, Brian. Don't send the
What
emails.
Netflix did Voltron, I think. Is
Voltron.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Oh,
thinking of.
Yeah.
Voltron.
I was never into Voltron when I was younger, but I definitely love the new series that they have going on Netflix.
Yeah.
Complete
I think-
tangent. They just released Lego Voltron today.
What?
Really?
Yeah. It's like 2,300 pieces or something. It's crazy.
Now,
man.
which one is that? Is that which phase of Voltron is that? Is that the cats or is that the cars?
It's the full Lion
Lions?
Voltron. You make all 5 cats out of Lego, and then they combine into Voltron.
That sounds amazing.
I'm ordering it now. So I was actually thinking about the new Thundercats. What is that? The one everybody was up in arms because they're like, oh, it's too
Yes.
cute. It's too.
It's divisive. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Did y'all?
Have we talked about that on the show before? I don't know.
No.
Matt, have you seen the trailers or the idea for the new Thundercats?
I'm actually looking it up on Google Images as you guys speak.
Oh, that's the one that has the very stylistic approach.
Yes.
It's the one that looks like everything else that Cartoon Network does.
Right, all the Adventure Time,
Yeah.
Steven Universe, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a yeah.
Matt.
Yes, okay.
Matt just echoed what the internet said when most of us saw it. Ah.
Yeah. Exactly. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I think sums it up and why people are so up in arms about it, if you dig down deep, a lot of the people that are artists, there was one, I don't remember who it was, and I wouldn't call them out on the show anyway, but he was complaining about it, and then he communicated a story where he didn't get a job on a show because he essentially was too good at drawing.
Yes.
They're like, no, we're looking for this. And he's like, and for whatever reason, probably, I don't know, like the rest of us, the guy has standards and he didn't want to draw like that, or he was pushing for a different style. And he's like, I didn't go to school and work on my craft for 10, 12 years and put in my 10,000 hours so I could draw this,
Right.
And he was saying like there's this unfortunate trend right now with the stylized look that they're looking for people. And I want to be very careful. I don't want to say that you're not skilled in order to draw like they are drawing the new Thundercats. Like it's a style.
It's a simplified style.
Yeah.
Simplified.
But I think that's one of the reasons why people are upset is because like Thundercats were cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this, it doesn't matter. I mean, you don't know whether it's going to be a hilarious show. It could be very well written. No one knows. But it does not look cool in the way that Transformers and G.I. Joe and He-Man in your mind when you were a kid were cool. And I think that's the big drop that people aren't really grasping.
Right, like why do you have to tie Thundercats to that? Just have a show that's similarly written and everything.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, like make something brand new and call it, I don't know, Gumball Cats.
Nah, but did
TM, Joel Duggan right there. Like,
right.
Like that's the kind of thing like the only reason that you're taking that IP is because it's available and you're trying to cash in on nostalgia. And the difference is that all the people that are old enough to remember that show don't necessarily love these new cartoons that are made for 8-year-olds.
Right.
I'm gonna flip it on the other side and go, I'm gonna defend just a little bit because somebody's gotta do it. Okay, so we already had the Thundercats 2011 also Cartoon Network, right? And it looks beautiful. It was I thought it was well in the spirit of the original, but with a modern take. So I'm of the attitude, so what? So what? Do it. I don't care. You want to mess up Star Wars for people of my age? I don't care. Just go for it. Wipe it out. Who cares? I don't know. I think we hold on to that stuff a little too dearly sometimes, but that's my
Anthony,
devil's advocate.
I know that you obviously don't work on this show and you can't speak for it, but do you think, or have you seen in your work, this trend of going a more simple kind of design style? Do you think it's budgetary? Like, do you think it's just that animation is expensive no matter which way you fold it?
Yeah, there could be a little of that because by any means, it's always a laborious process of doing an animated show. I mean, there's always efficient ways to do things, and that's why I think a lot of the systems now have become, puppet animation systems where it's
Mm-hmm.
you're not really getting the old school DuckTales fully animated
Woo, woo.
Yeah.
cartoons,
Right. I couldn't help it.
I think it's the usual story of we want to try to minimize risk and maximize potential return.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's again, all right, how do we cut costs and at the same time make sure it's something that's going to have a good potential to go ahead?
Isn't
So you
this
take a property that people already love,
right?
and then you snip out all the excess fat,
Yeah, if you know what I mean. Hey, also, wouldn't you say today's market is more competitive than anything anyone has ever seen? I mean,
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure.
it is the nightmare right now. I mean, let's face it, Joel. I mean, when they were making He-Man, who were they competing against?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No,
No
no
one.
one. And I think the other thing too is that there's a dangerous cycle with this kind of stuff, because I recently spent some time with some friends that work in animation around here in the city. I used to years ago, almost 10 years ago now. And the workload, the story of the work projects, and the pay hasn't changed.
No.
So
Mhm.
people are still jamming out as much as they can. Revisions are still coming in from 3 different places when they shouldn't, and the hours and the time that you put in are still climbing, yet there's been no pay increase.
Right.
And what's happening now is that studio execs, in just as a blanket kind of statement, are able to get more out of the animators per show if they dumb down the designs, if they do the, like you said, Anthony, the puppeting kind of animation, and it doesn't lighten the day for the animator. The studios just go, oh, well, instead of 15 or 20 seconds a week with DuckTales, we're just going to get you to do a minute and a half.
Woo, woo.
Yeah.
Right.
Precisely. It's frustrating to watch from the outside, because I've got friends that work in the industry around here, and it's tough because you burn out quick.
Yeah, Anthony,
Yeah.
you're just leaving the more of an animation role, right? Your previous job had a lot more animation involved.
It did. I was a animator for a software company that created a reading program for kids. So I wasn't actually in the entertainment industry per se, but I was an animator, and we worked in traditional animation, and then we switched to digital and used Toon Boom. But it was still, it was a frame by frame animation that process we would use. So yeah, that was a bit of a change of pace coming from that.
Speaking of from the educational background, I've been doing a little bit of just digging around, because I've been feeling nostalgic for some 70s and 80s commercialism and activism aimed at my childhood, specifically through cartoons and TV. Grew up during the 70s and 80s, so it was very often that I would be on ABC, well known for dealing with Disney many years ago. And they used to have these little segments in between shows called and I don't know exactly what they're called, but they always had this character named Time for Timer. And this little weird blob looking thing from the late 70s would come on and tell me how I was supposed to. He would sing a song like, "Hey, if you're hankering for a hunk of cheese," and he would go off and tell me, if you're really hankering for this or that, don't starve yourself. Go out and get some cheese. That was kind of his thing. But what I really wanted was some Captain Crunch. But time for Timer, he was all right. Did you grow up with those kind of guys, that kind of commercialism and activism going on during that time?
Oh yeah, for sure. I remember the old hankering for a hunk of, and then any of the Sesame Street PBS ones. I always remember. I don't even remember the name, but I always remember something with a little detective that would walk, and he was on a glass, and he would he would be going through the kitchen and going through cupboards, but it was all that stop motion animation that they would do. I think it was a Sesame Street thing,
right?
But
right.
then all the super guy, was that him?
I think that was it. It sounds right.
Yeah.
But then all that stuff with the Captain Crunch and tricks and all those cartoon commercials that were just so epically done back in the day.
So it was such a different. Once I think this kind of ties into our conversation about the fractured market that's come about mostly because of the internet. When we were growing up, there was one place to go get your entertainment, and that was the boob tube. Well, you could do comics and stuff, but if you wanted to do anything like animation, you'd have to go to the boob tube, and it was very specific programming. And as I've gotten older, especially in the last couple of years, I've just looked back and went, man, we just let those big corporate conglomerations just sit there and preach to us as kids, because I was a latchkey kid, so I spent a lot of time just me and the tube, and just, oh man, the stuff they were feeding into my brain. And even today, I'm still hooked on stupid stuff like Captain Crunch. I mean, I was eating some yesterday, and I'm like, man, this is like the least healthiest thing you could ever do, ever.
They knew how to target the parents' wallets.
They did, and then but that's where I started. I was getting almost kind of mad. I was like, oh, stupid people. We were just kids, and they were taking advantage of us. And I was like, but there was some good stuff. There was like Time for Timer, and that's the kind of stuff that really stuck with me. How a bill becomes a law, and all these things I learned. And I'm like, wait a minute, Time for Timer, he was always pushing cheese. Was he being backed by the big the big cheese companies? And so I'm a little cynical. But just anybody got like something that's stuck in their head all the time? Because I got that hankering for a hunk of cheese in my head. I mean, like almost every day I'll if I get hungry, it's just like I'll have to be hankering for a hunk of something.
That's funny. Something. I'm not sure why, but the other day the little interstitial animations for Saturday morning popped into my head. After these messages, we'll be right back, and they always sang it. And there was like this. I can't remember what kind of monster he was. He was a green monster with big eyes on stalks. Right. And it was stop motion. And he and his buddies would always have some sort of weird fight. And it was all just about like, don't go away. There's commercials, but we're going to be, back with DuckTales or whatever.
But wasn't that one of their series? It was like claymation.
Eventually, yeah.
It was a claymation
thing. It got picked up as a series. Yeah. It got picked up as a series later, but I don't remember what it was called.
It's interesting. That was probably just an artist. That was a time when independent artists could come along and create stupid stuff like Beavis and Butthead and these little. That's where you would go. You would go like to commercials like either on MTV or ABC. That was like more like late '90s, right, or mid '90s.
Yeah.
And That's how you would. That's how you'd make it.
I would. And now they have YouTube.
Now they got YouTubes. YouTube. Speaking of which, animation. One last question on animation. Now I'll drop it. So, Anthony, you have Vimeo and YouTube. How does an artist decide which way to go?
Both.
All right.
I don't know. It was literally, I haven't used it a lot recently, just for sheer reasons of I didn't need it. But when I was posting a lot, it was a matter of both. If you can, both get them out everywhere. But I do think YouTube is a little more popular, I would guess you would say. It just depends on what you're looking for, but it just seems like YouTube is the more go-to place in my I feel like just for my lay person's idea, I feel like Vimeo is a fancy place that you're not ashamed to show your art friends. It's like, hey, I posted something cool on Vimeo. You don't really have that kind of excitement for when you post something on YouTube. It's like, I post something on YouTube. It's there. Yep.
It's just anecdotal, but what I see on Vimeo is usually either short films or portfolio reels.
Yeah.
Demo stuff. And then anything episodic, like you're doing a 3-episode series or you've got an ongoing thing, YouTube tends to be the spot.
Yeah. Interesting. That's all the animation stuff I had. I'm done.
All done.
Stick a fork in him. Well, when I was going over your portfolio, Anthony, something that kind of struck me that I wanted to ask you about was that I picked up on, I want to say like 3 distinctive styles in terms of a combination of both like drawing style, but also like content in terms of like being more kid friendly versus being maybe aimed a little bit more adult, like the stuff from your Who Goes There board game and stuff like that. And I was wondering, like, is that something that you did intentionally, or was it just kind of like how the chips fell?
I think a lot of it is kind of how the chips fell. It slowly developed that way. Like I'll have I'll have more fun free just style when I'm trying to do something more edgy, and then it's sometimes if I know I'm doing and it's process related too. Like if I'm drawing a certain comic style, there's always a go-to line approach I use, the way I ink, the way I color, and then am I using a pencil method where because I have some drawings that favor more of that, where it's rough and loose, and then yes, definitely if there's a certain kid drawing style that I'm going towards that has to be a little more. Yeah, for a little younger age range, maybe it'll lean to a certain way, and I don't even think a lot of it is conscious. I just know it's like I know what I'm trying to shoot for in the target, and it kind of ends up just going towards that style naturally.
Right. I like that.
So there's not a whole lot of it that's actually conscious. It's knowing my end goal is conscious, but after that, it's kind of naturally what my hand will go in that direction.
It's good to have the ability to kind of flip between the styles like that.
Yeah.
That's good. It'll serve you well. So are you all digital now, or does this part of the process still reside in the really real world of physical mediums?
I'm more favorable to digital when I know I'm putting out something polished.
Right.
I have my sketchbook where I'll doodle and sketch, but very rarely will I ever transition that to a final piece.
Right.
I won't sketch something, scan it in, and then clean it up. I'll sketch out ideas, and then if I like that direction, then I'll take it digital, or I literally will start all digital.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually kind of easier with the tools because you can manipulate things a little easier during the rough stage.
Right. Speaking of tools, we've talked to a lot of artists recently who have been kind of moving towards the iPad Pros, but I know a lot of artists still use the Wacom tablets, and some are even using their own little, Ape Tech and all these non-mainstream tablets. What do you use mostly?
I wanted to try the iPad. I know a few people who had the new big one with the pencil, and then I've tried it out. I was trying it out back when iPad was closer to being newer, and the styluses were just starting to be used on iPads. But at that point, it felt so much like I was trying to imitate what I would do on a desktop with my Wacom, that it felt like I was trying to make it work versus just because I have a companion. I bought one of the first generation ones, and I've just had that one ever since. And I even rarely use that one because if I'm going to do any digital drawing, I'm mainly at my computer anyways.
Right.
So I don't do a lot of travel drawing. It's just not my style. Just only because I can't focus. Like if something's going on around me, I can't really sit there and focus as much as I need to.
I've talked about that too, and that's just recently because I can't draw outside because outside moves too much. I need things to be very still. It's just my mind. Now, you said use the companion. I just got an email like today from Intuos that they have you can get a refurbished Cintiq Companion 2 Intel Core 512 gigabyte solid state drive for only $800. I thought about it.
That's not bad.
No, it's not bad. Comes with Windows 8 Professional. I hope that's upgradable to 10. I don't know, but that would be the first thing I would do. Yeah.
Where does the iPad Pro land?
Hopefully,
because you can get the 10-inch one too. I'm curious now.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I wanted to try that, and again, it's just a matter of having, because with the pencil now on the iPad, that's a game changer.
It is tight.
I just never I haven't tried it enough to justify it, spending that money just as a gamble to see if it would work for me.
I know, and your company that you're working for has only been around for about 3 years, so coming at them going, hey, you know what you should get me?
Yeah, not going to happen.
Right? You know what you should get me right now? Come on, help me out, buddy. No.
Right.
Just bundle that into your next Kickstarter. You want to see something cool? Pledge X number of dollars, $7.99.
Right. Help me get more work done outside of work.
Exactly. Oh, man. Oh, speaking of board games, I did want to backtrack just a little bit because when I first, so about maybe 5 years ago, I noticed that there seemed to be an uptick with people getting interested in board games again. And beyond just those, Monopoly and the standard family fare that you would have, people were getting into the really serious stuff. And I had noticed that all the box art was terrible. I mean, for years, box art for those, those specialty board games were horrible. But now I'm seeing all these great artists that used to be doing other things in other fields, or kind of migrating a little bit towards there. So if you're an artist, how does an aspiring artist go about breaking into the board game biz? What have you learned along the way, and maybe what you would do differently?
A lot of it is, as in with anything, it's a little bit of just falling into it and who you know.
Yes.
But at the same time, because a lot of that work is outsourced. So like in our case here at Certifiable, it's a little different because we are the designer, illustrators, and things are done in-house. So we don't really have the need to outsource for artwork. But most any other publisher in any other board game place is going to be outsourcing artwork because they have a log of game designs that they're trying to push through, and each one is most likely being worked on by different artists at different times. Right. So I think other than just kind of beating on the doors in a sense by getting in contact, networking, going to any of these board game cons, having a portfolio, building up a portfolio is a completely different conversation, but, right. Having a strong portfolio and going to any of these places to network. Like if you want to really meet the people who are behind it, go to these board gaming conventions. A lot of these places are small enough that the people representing at the conventions are the people doing the work. So you can go to Gen Con or even Essen if you can get in that area. The game companies there are usually the people hiring. They're the ones that are making the choices. So go present yourself in front of them because we get approached by people more than not, and we're not super popular, but you do get those people who are like, oh, I love designing board games, and for the most part, the typical generic response is kind of like, okay, well, let me see some stuff, right. But 9 times out of 10 you'll get surprised by them by like, oh, you know what, those are some good ideas, or that's some good artwork. It's like, and that's all it takes. Or a little bit of a connection.
Or Anthony feels a little threatened and says, "Go away. We're all full up over here. Get out."
Right. Just start pushing them out the door.
Right. Gotta go. But so Anthony, did you have? Were you already a board game fanatic? Did you like board games before you started working on them, or has your love increased because you're working on them, or are you just so sick of board games now? It's just like, I don't know.
No, actually, it was I kind of fell into it.
Right.
I wasn't the kid that grew. I was the kid that grew up sitting in front of after school watching Disney Channel and drawing the characters, watching Ninja Turtles, drawing the characters. That's what I grew up loving, is just drawing.
Right.
I was an only child, so I didn't have a lot of board game experiences. So I didn't really play a lot of board games. And then recently, when I got this job, I started playing more. I started exploring the industry more and realizing the fun actually that's in there, and how fun the new board game craze is. Because like you were saying, board games used to be Monopoly, Trouble,
right.
Stuff like that. Now there's a lot more elaborate board games as the industry is exploding. And falling into this, I also found that there was an interest in creating them as well, because you're literally creating a problem, a puzzle, and you're trying to figure out these systems and mechanics, and it becomes this interesting puzzle you have to create before you even do the artwork for it. So,
right.
Getting to do all that is actually, I found it being something I was actually interested in that I didn't even realize it.
I love it. I tell you, I was like you said, I really didn't get hardcore. I had a couple of friends who were hardcore into board games, like Settlers of Catan. And I was like, yeah, that's weird. But as I've gotten older, and maybe our tastes have changed a little bit, I'm kind of like, I kind of jones for that old school, sit down with your friends and play. And man, you telling that story about not playing board games solo, that makes me want to start a new game for solo games. We need some solo games out there. I'm sure there's tons of them.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of them. But I think with the whole internet age is
Right.
it's kind of like a cycle. It's like now that online is so, prominent, board games are becoming more popular because it's the opposite. Now it's the tactile, sit down with your friends,
Yeah.
move this piece over here to do this. It's not push a button and does it. So it's a different experience. I think that's coming full circle.
Love it.
Yeah, I think we always have a fascination with real physical objects.
Yeah.
And no sooner do we bring things digital than a few years down the line, you find people respond to it by getting back into the physical, like with vinyl. I mean, people came out with MP3s. There's no need to own any physical media for that anymore, but people just like to have something physical, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of physical, I noticed you were doing some sculpture work.
Yes, my other love.
Yes, Joe had some questions about sculptures, I believe, and I would like to hear them.
It was actually one of the things that prompted me to reach out to Anthony to have him on the show, because I've been wanting to get into sculpture, little things like wanting to sculpt the characters from my comic strip. So when I want to do that upshot that I can't quite figure out how to do, I could just have a sculpture and just look at it at a specific angle and stuff. What got you into sculpting your cartoon creations? Because it's not different really from what you're drawing. You can immediately look at one of your sculptures and go, that's an Anthony drawing, but in the round.
Right.
So what made you go and take that leap?
I think in the initial stages, it was kind of like you were saying, it's just I wanted to see my characters in at least the way I thought of them in the dimensional form. And it is interesting where like you're saying, is because when I'm drawing them, I'm thinking of them exactly the same way as I'm sculpting them. It's they're one and the same. It's just a different medium that I'm using. And I've always been a more form oriented. Like I'm always thinking of the shapes of how these things look in real digital form or in my head. You know what I mean? It's always nice to actually feel them, because I like my drawings to, for the most part, feel like I could pick it up and it's a toy. It's just being rendered. So being able to sculpting them just gave me that aspect where I like to have a physical form of this creation, and it was tactile. So that was always another plus. Like I like that crafty side sometimes, where it's not I'm just drawing on paper. It's I'm creating something. I'm being creative and actually creating something tangible and physical. So
with drawing, you're essentially creating the illusion of space and form and weight and light and shadow. But when you've sculpted something, you just put it on the desk and all those things are taken care of.
Look at the lighting. The lighting's working so well. It's the whirlwind.
Physics, Brian, because physics.
Right.
So if you're looking to get into sculpture, like you've been a digital artist your whole life, or you've always been drawing, but you're looking at some of these sculptures and stuff like that, and you want to get into it. Like I've always found it a bit daunting, and much like everything else these days, like you go to say like, how do I get into sculpture? And the internet gives you like 8,000 different, avenues to take. What would you recommend for resources and materials for someone that wants to just dabble, like maybe not make a leap, but just kind of wants to mess around?
My go-to, when I was starting, my go-to was a Gnomon Workshop. They had tutorial DVDs and things like that, and they had a series on sculpting that I followed. They've got now, countless more videos on it, and all of them are good. But other than that, my go-to place for learning anything nowadays is YouTube, honestly.
Yeah.
Just find an artist or somebody with a video that has the style you're looking for and interested in, and just follow their process. Some of them are going to be better instructors than others, but that is definitely my go-to place for learning anything.
Have you tried anything on Gumroad at all?
I do have actually a couple of Gumroad things too. So that is another good source, is Gumroad. Trying to think of others. Some artists that I follow will, have Patreons and stuff like that I'll try and buy videos from them. For the most part, it's just find something and somebody you like that's doing it, and if they do tutorials, that's where I'll go instantly.
Yeah. No, did the tutorials kind of give you some sculpting materials to start off with as well?
For the physical form, like clay and stuff, the Gnomon DVDs, I would follow those step by step, and they would take you from creating armatures to the clay you need to use and how you need to manipulate it. And once you get comfortable with it, then you can start finding how to work it your way.
Right.
Digitally, I use ZBrush digitally.
Yes.
And that one was not horribly hard to learn. I know it does have a learning curve. Everybody is always talking about the interface, but I find it completely intuitive, and it didn't take long to learn. And I learned that one from just a couple of tutorial videos, YouTube, just constantly watching how-tos on how to just basics in the program. And then, once you use it more and more, you build up a repertoire of knowing, okay, this is how I'm going to do this. I only need 20% of the tools,
right.
But I know what I need. So
I thought it was a pretty intuitive as well. And I don't know if that's because of previous tools I've used that made it make sense. I found it easy to jump in. I found it very hard to master. Everything for everything for like blobs. Way to go, blobs. I made some blobs. There you go.
It's easy to get started.
Yeah, easy to get started for most of us.
I think that's something that's hard to accept too when you're getting into digital art, because some of the programs that are the best to use, they feel overwhelming because they're either meant to do something else, or the style that you're working in just requires so little of the program. Photoshop is a great example. I have seen some people do magical things with Photoshop to photos. Underexposed photos and stuff. Now, it doesn't necessarily look like a real photo because it's been so heavily manipulated, but it goes from being an unusable piece of crap to actually that would make a really cool poster or something. Yeah. But I don't use Photoshop for that. I use it to draw. Like I use it for something it was absolutely not intended for when it was designed originally. And I think that's the same sort of thing with ZBrush. Like ZBrush is something that can make the kind of monsters that you see in Avengers movies. Mm-hmm. But if you're making cartoon rabbits and moles and bunnies and stuff, then you're only going to need 20%, which feels weird. Like, you've got this great big powerhouse software and you're just like, yep, I'm going to make blobs and put, carrot tails on them and stuff. Like, I feel like it's one of those things that it plays with your artistic value system. Like, he's like, this thing could make like the most realistic thing ever, so you want it to be perfect when you realize, no, I'm a cartoonist. Like, I should just work with simple shapes and edges and that sort of stuff. I have trouble with that when I go to try to learn and do painting stuff in Photoshop. I'm such a line guy that when I go to do painting, like I keep on wanting it to be super Photoshop-y, and realistic looking. It's like, well, no, like if I can find a way to make it look like messy paint on canvas, that's ultimately what I want. But it ends up taking me forever because I start noodling around with something that doesn't matter or goes against what my end goal is. Do you ever find yourself in digital sculpting, like getting too pulled into being able to like zoom in and see the folds in a scarf and like get into those kind of details when you really shouldn't, because the thing when it is done is only like, an inch tall?
Oh yeah, for sure. Because I've got constant like the board game pieces I did for Who Goes There. It was a prime example where once they're completely done and printed and molded, they're 2 inches tall. But as you're sculpting them, I'm in there like doing folds under the eyes and stuff like that. It's like, well, I have all this stuff. I need to have it in there. It's like, no. You literally have to consciously pull yourself back and say, okay, what is my final goal? Where is this going to live? After that, you don't need all the texture and tools and stuff if you can get it done in half the time, and it's just as good.
Nice. You ever waste a whole day with your little 3D printer there? You just blow the whole day. I was supposed to do some work today. I guess I did this instead.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll pump out some prototypes and sculpt them and then print them, and it's definitely will be a time suck.
Now, is that the company's form lab in that printer there, or is that your personal Anthony Coffey?
No,
for
that is the company's, but I will by all means buy myself my own set of resin and stuff like that, so I can print as much as I need.
I'm not saying you're a leech. I'm saying, you know, you're gonna make use of the. You're gonna make use of what you got, right? Heck yeah,
for sure. It's there. I'll utilize it.
Dig Skippy, I love it. I love those things. I would love to have this particular one you have. Are you pretty happy with the? It looks like it's a Formlabs. What model is that? I'm a nerd.
It's a Form 2.
Ah, Form 2. Excellent. It works and does everything you had hoped it would do?
It does by every step of the imagination. It's just I was never a big fan of the extrusion printers where you could see all the stair stepping and this one with the SLA printing was just so crisp. I was like, okay, well that's a go-to. I mean, it may cost a little more, but in this case, you get what you pay for.
It looks good. If you want to see what Anthony's done here with this Formlabs, head on over to his Instagram. If you haven't followed him on Instagram, that's the place to be because, man, he's got some followers on there. So Instagram.com/Anthony Scott with 1 T, Coffey, and that's EY. So check out that on Instagram, and you'll see some of his forms there. I am digging them. That is a lot of fun. The reason why I asked if you wasted a whole day is I could just see myself just wasting a whole day. 2 days, a week.
Well, some of them isn't even intentional. Some of it's like, well, crap, that print failed, or I didn't set that up right, or we need to make this revision.
How long in general for an object 1 inch by 1 inch does it, or 2 inch probably by 2 inch? How long does it take for that thing to spit something out?
It'll probably, like, the figures I could print out a prototype in about 8 hours.
Right.
Maybe 5 if I did low resolution.
Right.
Yeah. So it's pretty quick.
Yeah. Neaty. Sorry, Joel, I didn't mean to interrupt your sculpting questions. Did you have more sculpting questions?
No, that was my next question.
Oh, good. Woo. Woo. Good, because you know
Brian
what?
Doesn't steal questions.
I don't steal questions. I make my own questions, and then I buy my own resin.
Great minds think alike.
Right. And then I buy my own resin and use the company printer. Leave me alone. Anyway, Anthony, we are nearing the end of the show here. I didn't get to ask all the questions. I had some questions about a few other things, but we want to respect your time and thank you for the time that you have taken. We do have one final question before we leave. Matt is traditionally asked this question, so we're going to pass it to Matt.
All right.
Yes, we do. So, Anthony, who are some artists we really need to know about and follow them?
Some of my go-tos I like to follow on Instagram, or my go-to is I like a guy called Eduardo Vieira.
Oh yeah.
We've had him on the show, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
I love his style. He's one of my favorites. Also Cam Kindle.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah. No yeah.
Love
Had
that
him on
guy.
the show too, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Very nice. Sean Bryant.
Nope.
Ooh, not familiar with Sean.
No?
Right? Yeah. Let's look that up.
Is it Briant?
Bryant. Yeah.
Why?
And
Oh, that's
SHAUN. But he's a viz dev guy at DreamWorks.
Ooh,
He's got some interesting character designs. There's a guy I follow that's Justin Chan's. I think he's probably a little younger, maybe just out of school. I don't see a lot of stuff from him. I think he's new to Instagram as well.
Oh, that's fine. You don't have to have a large body of work. We like seeing everything.
Yeah, for sure. I dig his stuff that he's been putting up.
Let's see.
And then all the good ones like Eric Canetti, Scotty Young, Cheeks. I love Cheeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, see, now I'm going to waste the full day looking at all these wonderful artists. Hey, man, Scott, it's Anthony. Thank you for being on the show and taking the time to sit down with us. I hate that we didn't get to all the questions, which just means we'll have to have you back on for a part 2 to follow up. Cool. Yeah, follow up with the next project because you're wrapping this one up. I'm assuming you have another one that you guys are got in the gun, just ready to fire out to Kickstarter any day now, right?
Yeah, for sure. We got other projects in the work. I don't know about. We'd like to get them out sooner than possible, but you know how that works.
That's right. That's right. And if you are okay, so don't forget to head over to the official website, AnthonySCoffey.com. Check that out. I personally am very excited about late ordering or pre-ordering, however you want to state it. Who goes there? This is a board game based on The Thing. Yes, that movie series is based on the book, though, which is tied in very closely story-wise.
Yep.
According to Anthony here, and I love the artwork and the style. Now, there's pieces here. Let's see. I was looking at the game earlier, and it's cards and dice and stuff. Are there any figurines that you've prototyped out for this guy, or is there any figurines yet for that? Now, looks like cards, dice.
There should be. I don't know if they have pictures of them, but yes, there's 9 figures or so that are
nice.
pawns in the game. Yeah, I sculpted the characters for that.
Excellent. So I'm going to have me lots of Anthony Coffey this year. All right, Anthony. Anything else you want to tell the listeners? Got anything coming up that you want to speak to?
At the moment, our next Kickstarter is probably going to be within the next couple of months, but it'll be a game called D6. So it'll be a little D&D-esque game. It's like easiest way to explain it, it's kind of like an arcade version of D&D where, you get down and get the feeling of it, but it's a more sit down and, get going.
I'm down with that. All right. Thank you, Anthony, so much for being on the show. Also want to thank Joel Duggan, Star Across the Line. Joel, thank you.
Hey, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Excellent. And won't we? I'll tell you what. When we come back to the thing you just want to tell us about, because I'm excited about the news. Anthony, do you want to hang around for that, or do you want to, or you got to cut out?
No, I can hang around.
Excellent. Oh, good. So Matthew Ducharme, Matt the Wad. Matt, how are you?
Just dandy.
Where can people visit you?
Best place to find my work is right on YouTube. Just do a search for Matt the Wad or Matthew Ducharme.
Excellent. The Brian Dunaway on Twitter. BrianDunaway.com's website. Hey, Joel, tell us about your news.
Well, it just dawned on me that I've got 2 small bits of news. The first is that we are at the tail end of a promotion for Piper's book. There's free prints going out with the softcover and hardcover books at forgepublishing.com. So if you haven't yet picked up one of Piper's daily paintings books, then there's a little free gift with purchase happening there. And the prints are available on their own in the store as well. But that ends on the 30th. So depending on when this podcast goes out, there might only be a day or so left. So check that out.
29th.
And actually, and on a personal note, my big kind of flag in the cap is a book that I worked on has been released. Our friend Tom Merritt has written a new novel. It's called Gallium.
Yes.
It's a sci-fi adventure, and I drew the cover.
Oh.
So that's been out. If you go to tommerrittbooks.com, it is front and center at the top of the page, and there is a number of ways that you can buy it, whether it's Kindle, Lulu, Barnes & Noble, Apple iBooks, Nook, like whatever you want. But you can check that out there. And it's a kind of a fun thing for me because I've done some children's covers before, but I've never done a contemporary sci-fi novel. So I'm thrilled. Plus, I've read it. It's a good book. So,
I love the illustration, and yay, finally get to work for adults.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm really proud of it. I know Tom's really happy with it, and I want people to support Tom too because he's a good author. He's I mean he's a friend, but he's a good author. So check out Gallium at tommerrittbooks.com.
That Tom Merritt's a smart feller. I'll tell you that right now. I love him. Hey, thanks for sharing that with us. It looks amazing. You can follow everything we do on Comics Coast to Coast on Twitter, Comics C2C. Or just go to the website, comicscoasttocoast.com. You can get to all the links from there. You can watch these videos. If you're listening to this through a podcast and you're only doing the audio, but you want to see some video of the illustrations and work of our artist, head on over to YouTube. Find my channel, Brian Dunaway, and you will be able to see probably the last 10 episodes of Comics Coast to Coast. I've been trying to get those out a little earlier, 8 hours early, to our patrons on patreon.com/comicsc2c. If you'd like to support the show, it's a great way to do it. And also a great way to get the information just a little bit early, like 8 hours I mean, you don't think that's a big deal, but it's like a difference between getting it Friday morning and getting to take it with you, or forgetting and not listening to it till Monday. That sounds hard. That sounds terrible. Okay, so that's it. That's it for the show. We'll see you guys next week.
Show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.